Do you have this text? If you can display, it will be nice. Yes. Like other well-to-do residents of Calcutta, Narendra was willing to support religious organizations if they were honorable, but honor was not always obvious. Many sannyasis came knocking at his door looking for donations. Who could tell what their motives were? Matha, religious schools, abounded, and the monks charged with raising funds looked more or less alike. There was every chance his money would be wasted supporting a place for loafers who sponged off innocent Hindu families. The greater danger was inadvertently giving money to monks who indulged in sex or ate meat. Celibacy and a meat-free diet were behavioral requirements for Vaishnavas. Narendra's friend Abhay always had good advice to offer, and Narendra asked that he accompany him to the mutt and provide a second opinion. Abhay declined. From childhood, he said he had seen cheaters dressed like monks exploit his father's charitable nature. They took Gaur Mohan's donations, stepped outside his door, and lit up marijuana cigarettes. Some of his family relations ran a boarding house for single men. Abhay recalled seeing one of these boarders dressed in saffron robes gulp down a cup of tea, finish a cigarette, and then grab his water pot and staff and head out the door to collect his daily sadhu's donations. Abhay had no patience for such people. I am not going, he told Narendra. There were more pressing matters. Orders in his pharmacy were waiting to be filled, supplies needed to be restocked, there were customers to serve, meetings of Gandhi's movement to organize, and simply no time for listening to another so-called guru spout off. Come on, Narendra insisted. As a courtesy to his friend, Abhay agreed to be dragged along. They arrived at a building on Ultadanga Junction Road in North Calcutta. A sign over the door announced that the one-story structure was headquarters of the Gaudiya Mutt, the monastery of Greater India. Abhay and Narendra climbed a worn marble staircase to the roof. Air conditioning was scarce in those days, and public events were often scheduled on rooftops, where evening breezes offered relief from the day's heat. Monks greeted the two guests and brought them to the front of the gathering to meet the head of their mission. Even seated, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's stature was obvious to Abhay. This was not another pretend sadhu. He seemed at least 6 feet tall and sat ramrod straight. His forehead was broad and high, his color fair. He wore the traditional robes of a sannyasi, 2 red-dyed lengths of cloth, one wrapped around his waist, the other draped over his shoulders. 3 strands of small wooden tulsi beads looped around his neck. 2 stripes of white clay ran from the bridge of his nose to his shaved head. The full uniform of a devout Krishna worshipper and, in Bhaktisiddhanta's case, Acharya of the Gaudiya Mutt. Vaishnava community elders elevated a candidate to the exalted position of Acharya, head of a recognized lineage of teachers, based on mastery of scripture and personal character. Historically, some acharyas received their appointment as a result of family affiliation, for there was a sentiment that virtue and ability were inherited. If, for instance, a man's father and grandfather had served with distinction, it was assumed he possessed comparable talents. In Bhaktisiddhanta's case, both criteria applied. He was the son of the late Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a respected former head of the Vaishnava community and prolific author and poet, and in his own right, Bhaktisiddhanta demonstrated the character and wisdom of a true Acharya. Abhay and Narendra touched their foreheads to the ground in the traditional way of greeting a holy person. Something about Abhay must have impressed itself upon Bhaktisiddhanta, as barely had Abhay stood up when Bhaktisiddhanta said, "You are an educated young man. Why don't you take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message and spread it in English to the Western world?" In years to come, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would describe that he hesitated when his guru issued the instruction that changed his life. Leave everything and travel to the West? How could he do that? Of course, Abhay knew quite a bit about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His father and mother had raised him as a Chaitanya follower, and since childhood he had been chanting Hare Krishna as Mahaprabhu had taught. But aside from an astrologer's questionable prediction, nothing in the profile of Abhai's life suggested he would become a religious leader. He and his wife, Radharani, had a 1-year-old daughter and were planning to have more children. He earned an honest living and paid his bills and left the religious grandstanding to others. More to the point, Abhay followed Gandhi and believed the real key to moving India forward was freedom from British rule. For hundreds of years, Bengal's Hindus and Muslims had lived in relative peace. It was the British who set one religion on the other and turned neighbors into enemies. When it came to choosing between religion and nationhood, to Abhai's 26-year-old mind, Gandhi's movement came first. Rid India of the Raj, and her millennial wisdom will have a platform for expression. Sir, Abhay said, who will hear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message as long as we are a dependent nation? Let us first achieve our independence. Then we can spread Indian culture. Bhaktisiddhanta disagreed. Mahaprabhu's message did not depend on politics. Real independence, he said, meant freeing the soul from the shackles of illusion. Doctrines of impersonalism and voidism pervaded India's thinking. These dangerous ideas, decrying the personhood of God, were the true enemies, not the British. Until people were trained to know the difference between the body and soul, and the soul's ultimate fulfillment in love of God, they would never know peace. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given the formula: chant Hare Krishna, follow the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, and the sun of Krishna will rise to illumine a dark time. It was indeed a dark time. In 1920, a visit by the Prince of Wales had turned into a 4-day riot. Shops were pillaged, and any Europeans seen in public were attacked. Just weeks before Abhai's meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta, a mob stormed a police station in the town of Chauri Chaura, beat 22 officers to death, and burned their bodies. Nationalism had released poisonous resentment, and civil disobedience was careening out of control. As much as Abhay had convinced himself Gandhi held the torch of truth, he could not stand by that conviction after hearing Bhaktisiddhanta speak about re-spiritualizing the world. By comparison with such a global mission, Gandhi's plans for a politically independent country seemed stunted and trifling. Up to that moment, Abhai's perspective had been primarily Indian. Bhaktisiddhanta was proposing something greater, something universal. Despite his attraction to nationalism, something in the brief exchange with Bhaktisiddhanta quickened Abhai's pulse. They had not spoken long, maybe an hour. But in that short space of time, Bhaktisiddhanta managed to refute Abhai's assumptions that God took a back seat to politics and that independence offered a lasting solution to India's woes. India suffered from lack of a spiritual revolution, Bhaktisiddhanta argued, and campaigning for political independence merely distracted from the more critical campaign launched by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to reinstate God in his creation. British rule was irrelevant. Not only India, but all of humanity needed liberating. The next day, Abhay walked into the office of his employer, Dr. Karthik Chandra Bose, and resigned. Bose had been the Day family's doctor for more than 20 years and had watched Abhay grow up. The elder physician appreciated the personal touch Abhay always brought to their customers, such as answering requests for pricing with handwritten letters, but Bose also recognized how headstrong Abhay could be and knew better than to question his plans. I understand your attraction to this teacher, Bose said. Still, you are a family man. I will give you a franchise to my company's products. Sell wherever you like, whenever you like. The commissions will be more than your current salary, and you will still have time for these pursuits. Abhay weighed his options. What was work or money or even family compared to the instruction he had received on the roof of the Gaudiya Mutt? Bhaktisiddhanta had opened his eyes to the meaning of Krishna devotion, and taking Krishna's message to the West was no trifling matter. It would not happen between sales calls. Still, Bose had a point. No one travels abroad without funds, and pharmaceuticals had potential. India was ripe for Indian-made goods, and Bose's prices were better than those of the British. Maybe he could save some money and then go west. Abhay agreed to Bose's offer to start a franchise. The talk with his wife did not go as well. Radharani did not share her husband's enthusiasms, political, religious, or otherwise. And here he was, telling her Gandhi had it wrong and that he would be going to the West. There are no witnesses or diaries from which to assess her reaction to Abhai's meeting with Bhakti Siddhanta. But when they married, it is likely she did not envision becoming a missionary's wife. Following is an excerpt from Volume 1 of Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita by Satswarup Das. Abhay had only recently returned from Vrindavan to his work at Prayag Pharmacy when the devotees at the Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt informed him of the good news. They had secured land and funds for constructing a building, the Sri Rupa Gaudiya Mutt, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta would be coming on November 21 to preside over the ceremony for the laying of the cornerstone. Sir William Malcolm Haley, Governor of the United Provinces, would be the respected guest. United Provinces those days meant Uttar Pradesh. Sir William Malcolm Haley, Governor of the United Provinces, would be the respected guest and in a grand ceremony would lay the foundation stone in the presence of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. When Abhay learned that there would also be an initiation ceremony, he asked if he could be initiated. Atulananda, the Matha's president, assured Abhay that he would introduce him to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. At home, Abhay discussed his initiation plans with his wife. She had no objection, but she did not want to take initiation herself. They were already worshipping the deity at home and offering their food to the deity. They believed in God and were living peacefully. But for Abhay, that was not enough. Although he would not force his wife, he knew that he must be initiated by a pure devotee. Avoiding sinful life, living piously, these things were necessary and good, but in themselves they did not constitute spiritual life and could not satisfy the yearning of the soul. Life's ultimate goal and absolute necessity of the self was love of Krishna. That love of Krishna his father had already inculcated within him, and now he had to take the next step. His father would have been pleased to see him do it. What he had learned from his father was now being solidified by someone capable of guiding all the fallen souls of the world to transcendental love of God. Abhay knew he should go forward and take complete shelter in the instructions of his spiritual master. And the scriptures enjoined, he who is desirous of knowing the absolute truth must take shelter of his spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession and who is fixed in Krishna consciousness. Even Lord Chaitanya, who was Krishna himself, had accepted a spiritual master, and only after initiation did he manifest the full symptoms of ecstatic love of Krishna while chanting the holy name. As for the ritual initiation he had received at age 12 from a family priest, Abhay had never taken it very seriously. It had been a religious formality. But a guru was not a mere officiating ritualistic priest, so Abhay had rejected the idea that he already had a guru. He had never received instructions from him in bhakti, and his family guru had not linked him through disciplic succession with Krishna. But by taking initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he would be linked with Krishna. Bhakti Siddhanta, son of Bhakti Vinod Thakur and disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, was the guru in the 12th disciplic generation from Lord Chaitanya. He was the foremost Vedic scholar of the age, the expert Vaishnava who could guide one back to Godhead. He was empowered by his predecessors to work for the highest welfare by giving everyone Krishna consciousness, the remedy for all sufferings. Abhay felt that he had already accepted Srila Bhakti Siddhanta as his spiritual master and that from their very first meeting he had already received his orders. Now, if Srila Bhakti Siddhanta would accept him as his disciple, the relationship would be confirmed. He was coming so soon after Abhay had seen and heard him in Vrindavan. That was how Krishna acted through his representative. It was as if his spiritual master, in coming to where Abhay had his family and business, was coming to draw him further into spiritual life. Without Abhay's having attempted to bring it about, his relationship with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was deepening. Now Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was coming to him as if by a higher arrangement. On the day of the ceremony, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati met with his disciples at the Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt on South Malacca Street. While he was speaking Harikatha and taking questions, Atulananda Brahmachari took the opportunity to present several devotees, Abhay amongst them, as candidates for initiation. The Allahabad devotees were proud of Mr. Day, who regularly attended the matha in the evening and led bhajans, listened to the teachings and spoke them himself, and often brought respectable guests. He had contributed money and had induced his business colleagues also to do so. With folded palms, Abhay looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and was visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging looks with Abhay. He likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. As the moment and the words became impressed into his being, Abhay was in ecstasy. Atulananda was pleasantly surprised that his Gurudev was already in approval of Mr. Day. Other disciples in the room were also pleased to witness Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's immediate acceptance of Mr. Day as a good listener. Some of them wondered when or where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had arrived at such an estimation of the young pharmacist. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was seated on a Vyasasana, and the room was filled with guests and members of the Gaudiya Math. Those to be initiated sat around a small mound of earth where one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's sannyasis prepared a fire and offered grains and fruits into the flames, while everyone chanted mantras for purification. Abhay's sister and brother were present, but not his wife. Abhay basked in the presence of his Gurudev. Yes, he likes to hear. The words of his spiritual master and his glance of recognition had remained with Abhay. Abhay would continue pleasing his spiritual master by hearing well. Then, he thought, I'll be able to speak well. The Vedic literature described the 9 processes of devotional service, the first of which was Shravanam, hearing about Krishna. Then came Kirtanam, chanting about and glorifying him. By sitting patiently and hearing at Kosi, he had pleased Krishna's representative. And when Krishna's representative was pleased, Krishna was pleased. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had not praised him for donating money to the Matha and hadn't advised him to forsake his family and business and travel with him. Nor had he asked Abhay to perform great austerities like the yogis who mortified their bodies with fasts and difficult vows. But he likes to hear, he had said. I have marked him. Abhay thought about it and again listened carefully as his spiritual master conducted the initiation. Finally, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called for Abhay to come forward and receive the Harinam initiation by accepting his beads. After offering prostrated obeisances, Shri Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama Ki Jai. After offering prostrated obeisances, Abhay extended his right hand and accepted the strand of japa beads from the hand of his spiritual master. At the same time, he also received the sacred Brahmanical thread, signifying second initiation. Usually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave the first initiation, Harinama, and only after some time, when he was satisfied with the progress of the disciple, would he give the second initiation. But he offered Abhay both initiations at the same time. Now, Abhay was a full-fledged disciple, a Brahmana, who could perform sacrifices such as this fire yajna for initiation. He could worship the deity in the temple and would be expected to discourse widely. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta added Aravinda, lotus, to his name. Now he was Abhaya Charana Aravinda. After Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left Allahabad for Calcutta, Abhay keenly felt the responsibility of working on behalf of his spiritual master. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had instructed Abhay to study Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which outlined the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees and explained how a devotee can advance in spiritual life. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was a law book for devotional service, and Abhay would study it carefully. He was glad to increase his visits to the Allahabad center and to bring new people. Even at his first meeting with his spiritual master, he had received the instruction to preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and now he began steadily and carefully considering how to do so. Preaching was a responsibility, at least as binding as that of home and business. Even in his home, he wanted to engage as far as possible in preaching. He discussed with his wife about his plans for inviting people into their home, offering them prasadam, and holding discussions about Krishna. She didn't share his enthusiasm. Srila Prabhupada, my wife was a devotee of Krishna, but she had some other idea. Her idea was just to worship the deity at home and live peacefully. My idea was preaching. Except from a letter from Srila Prabhupada to Hanuman Prasad Poddar. So anyway, from 1922 to 1933, Practically, I was not initiated, but I got the impression of preaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult. That I was thinking, and that was the initiation by my Guru Maharaj. I passed on as a householder, but by the causeless mercy of my divine master, that order of preaching was impressed on my heart. I was initiated regularly in 1933 at Allahabad when Sir Malcolm Haley, the then governor of UP, opened our Gaudiya Math branch there. Another lecture by Srila Prabhupada on the day of the disappearance day of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in 1933, I was officially initiated, and my only qualification was when I was introduced to my Guru Maharaj for initiation. So Guru Maharaj immediately said, "Yes, I shall initiate this boy. He is very nice. He hears me very patiently. He does not go away." So that was my qualification. The high standard of philosophy which he was speaking at that time, practically I could not follow what was he was speaking, but still I liked to hear him. That was my hobby. Whenever I was asking that when Guru Maharaj will speak, so he took it very seriously. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now we will watch a small video about Prabhupada talking about his initiation. After that, we will have the Bhagavatam class.
Today we have a special lecture by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada on the occasion of his Diksha Divas Day.
Following is a lecture delivered by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Recorded on the 10th of December 1976 at Hyderabad.
Sri Gurun Vaishnavansha. By spiritual master, practically I met him in 1922, and this poetry was written in 1936. That means 14 years before writing this poetry, I met my Guru Maharaj in 1922. At that time, I was quite a young man, 25 years old only, and I was posted in a very responsible position as the office manager of Dr. Bose's laboratory, and I was fond of, in those days, of Gandhi's movement. In 1922, I joined Gandhi's movement, and I gave up my education and career because one of the Gandhi's program was to boycott the university. That's a very long story, and many students gave up their education and career and joined the Gandhi's movement, and I was one of them. So, Dr. Bose, Kartik Chandra Bose, is a very important man at that time. He was managing director of Bengal Chemical Company. Now there is a street in the central Calcutta, Dr. Kartik Bose Street. So he was a very important man, and he was our family physician and my father's very intimate friend. So When I gave up my education and I was joining Gandhi's movement, at that time, Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose asked me to join him. So, with the permission of my father, I joined. So I was fond of, at that time, this Gandhi non-cooperation movement. And then, when I joined Dr. Bose's laboratory, first I was dressed in khabdar. The Dr. Bose liked that dress, khabdar dress. He told me one day that out of your whole Gandhi's movement, I like this khabdar only. Dr. Bose said. And why? Because this will give impetus to industry. This hand spinning will gradually give impetus to India. Actually, that happened. He was himself an industrialist. Actually, in India, the chemical industry was given birth by Dr. Kartik Chandra. It was very important fact. He started with Bengal chemical. So, 1922, I met my Guru Maharaj through the exigency of my intimate friend, Mr. Narendranath Malli. And I would not go. He told me information, there is a nice sadhu, let us go and see. I did not like very much these sadhus in those days, national spirit. So I said, I have seen many sadhus. They come at my father's care. I was not very much pleased with their behavior. So he dragged me forcibly. No, I have heard this person is very exalted. So I went, and his first opening version was that you are educated young man, why don't you preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gospel in the Western country? I did not know. So this was his blessing in the first meeting. I did not know, but because we belong to a Vaishnava family, we were very much worshippers of Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, our family deity. So I was very much pleased that here is a personality who is going to preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gospel. I was very much pleased. So anyway, from 1922 to 1933, practically I was not initiated, but I got the impression of preaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult. That I was thinking. And that was the initiation by my Guru Maharaj. Then officially I was initiated in 1933 because in 1923 I left Calcutta. I started my business at Allahabad. So I was always thinking of my Guru Maharaj, that I met a very nice sadhu. And although I was doing business, I never forgot it. Then in 1928, these Gaudi Math people came to Allahabad during Kumbh Mela. As the Kumbh Mela is going to be held this year, a similar big Kumbh Mela was held in 1928. In those days, they came to open their branch in Allahabad, and somebody recommended that you go to, at that time I was running on my big pharmacy. I was very well-known man in Allahabad as the proprietor of the pharmacy. So somebody recommended them that you go to our Vaibhav. He is a very religious man. He will help you. So when they entered my shop, I was very much pleased that this man I met in 1922, and now they have come in this way. We become reconnected. And in 1933, I was officially initiated. And my only qualification was when I was introduced to my Guru Maharaj for initiation, Guru Maharaj immediately said, yes, I can initiate this boy. He is very nice. He hears me very patiently. He does not go away. So, that was my qualification. The high standard of philosophy which was speaking at that time, practically I could not follow what he was speaking. But still, I like to hear. That was my hobby. Whenever I was asking when Guru Maharaj will speak. So, he took it very seriously. Then in 1936, it's a long history.